Hi everyone, in this session we're going to learn a new HackerRank problem titled Sock Merchant. Let's try to read the question and try to understand what exactly we need to perform in this particular problem statement. John works at a clothing store. He has a large pile of socks that he must pair by color for sale. Given an array of integers representing the color of each sock, determine how many pairs of socks with matching colors there are. Right? So it basically says that John works at a store wherein you have a lot of socks. They're again not grouped together. Now he needs to arrange his socks according to the color, and then he needs to determine how many pairs of socks do we have. Right? Okay. They're given a sample input out here and then another input out here. We're going to take this particular input statements and try to understand in more detail, okay, what the problem statement does. Right? I've taken this input here. Okay. Now, for each sock color, they're going to represent with a numeric value. Right? Okay. Now you start scanning this list of socks which are given in an array. You start with the first one. We'll put the socks at one side. Now we take the second socks. It's of different type, so we keep it separate. And then we take the third sock. Remember, it's of type 1. So we basically match up this because they are the same color. We can group them, right? We have made one pair out here. Now we take up the fourth one, which is of type 2, right? So again, since this is second occurrence of type 2, right? What we did, we basically combined this and then made, okay, this is second pair. Now the next one, right? It's separate. Okay, 3, then 2. And finally, we observed that we basically had 2 pairs out here. And these 3 socks, we could not make up any pair. When you look at this particular problem, the first thing which comes to mind while solving this is we can use a frequency array, right? Like frequency array basically holds the number of times each element has occurred, right? Fine. Now, you create a frequency array and you add up the elements, or we add up the frequency of every type. Like 1, we had 3 occurrences, we add up that. 2 had 3 occurrences, we add up that. 3 had only 1 occurrence. Now after this, if you want to know the number of pairs, we take the first entry, the value part here, we divide by 2. What is 3 by 2? It is 1. Remember, you need to perform integer division, not floating point division, right? We could make 1 pair of type 1. We could make 1 pair of type 2. We could not make any pairs of type 3. Totally, we make up 2 pairs, right? For this particular input, this method is sufficient, no problems. But let us consider another problem statement and try to understand what really happens in this particular case. This input is again given in the HackerRank itself. We had 9 socks and the colorings was input out here, and accordingly this was the pairs which would form. We had 4 socks of type 10. We had 3 socks of type 20. We had 1 sock of 50, 1 sock of 50, 30 and 50, right? And we could make a total of 3 pairs, right? 2 pairs of type 10 and 1 pair of type 20. Now, if you try to follow the same approach what we just followed, the frequency array, now what should be the size of the frequency array? It should be 50, right? Out of that, only 4 entries in that array will have a non-zero value. Every other entry will have a value 0, right? Okay, something like this. Okay, so there will be only 4 entries in an array of 50, right, which has non-zero value. Every other array element has 0 value, right? But the problem statement says that there could be 100 types of socks. Clear? Right. So if you want to consider all the test cases, so we have to basically have an array whose size is 100. 50 is not sufficient. Clear? Right. Now we need to look out for a better approach wherein we don't reserve memory for all these zeros, right? There is a data structure wherein we only add up the entries if it exists. If it does not exist, we'll not add up that particular entry, right? We'll try to look into that. Now, the data structure has two parts in each element. It has a key part and it has a value part, right? Now, when you start scanning the socks type, the sock type becomes a key and the value part will be the frequency. The first time you encounter the first socks of type 10, we look into this particular table, we check out that do we already have some entry with 10 or not. We don't have it, so we'll add a new entry and then we'll set the value as 1. After that, we'll just scan the second element, which is 20. We don't have an entry of 20, so we'll add a new entry as a key and then the value part will be set to 1. The third entry again is 20, but remember 20 is already existing. So what we do is we don't add a third entry as a key. Instead, we'll go to the value part and update it here from 1 to 2. Clear? The same way, the fourth entry is 10 and 10 is already existing as a key. So we'll not add a new entry out here. We'll just update the value part to 2. Right? Now, the fifth element again 10 is occurring, so I'll update the value part to 3. Now when the next one 30, we don't have the 30 as a key, so we add 30 as a separate key and then set the value as 1. Right? And then next entry is 50. We don't have 50 out here. We'll add a new entry in the key as 50 and then the value part will be 1. Then 10 again will update only the value part because 10 is existing as a key part. Right? And then 20 is existing, so I'll update the value part to 3. Right? Now this is what we get, the keys and the value. Remember, we will not be storing anything other than whatever is occurring out here. Like we will not have anything from 1 to 9 or 11 to 19, 21 to 29, 31 to 49 or 51 to 100. We'll not have any such entries here. It'll only have 4 entries, okay, for this particular sample input. Clear? So once you have the keys and the values, if you want to get the pair, the same kind of operation, scan every element, get the value part, and then okay, you just keep dividing by 2 and then get to know what is the number of pairs what you can make up. How many pairs can we make up? We can make 2 pairs of type 10, we can make 1 pair of type 20, and we cannot make any pair of type 30 and 50. The data structure which basically gives you the key and value part, okay, this data structure in C++ is called as map, and if you work in Java also it is called as map, but if you work on Python it is called as dictionary, right? We'll look out for this implementation in C++. Clear? Right. Now the first thing what I'll do it is I'll try to read the number of socks, and remember this needs to be commented when submitting into the HackerRank, right? Okay. Now after this I would like to create an array to hold the IDs of the socks. Right? Since we're working with C++ out here, okay, I think vector will be better when compared to simple arrays. And since the IDs are integers, I would like to create a vector of integers, sock IDs, right? And you can just mention n out here. Please do observe it is not square bracket, it is parenthesis. So this will basically reserve memory for n number of elements, right? Okay. After that, I need to read n values from the user, which is the socks IDs. And as I keep reading the element, I would like to directly put this into sock IDs of I. Clear? And remember, in case if you have not used this out here, then we had to read the element separately and use a push underscore back function of the vector. Clear? Fine. Once the IDs are read, okay, the next thing what we need to do it is I need to create a map data structure. Every map has 2 parts, the key part and the value part. And we need to specify the data type of key and the data type of value. Since the key is sock IDs, which are integers, right? And the value part is frequency, which is also an integer, right? Okay. Now I will basically name it as sock frequency. Clear? Okay. After this, what I'd like to do it is I'd like to scan all the elements of the vector sock IDs one by one. So I know that I have n number of entries. I'll just use a normal for loop, right? I'll just get sock IDs of I. This will give me one by one all the sock IDs. Now I need to put this into a map in such a way that the sock ID basically becomes the key part. Like the first I encountered socks of type 10, 10 will go as a key part of the map, right? The value part should be, I should get the existing value plus 1. So in order to place that, I'll just write map, okay, in the square bracket, I'm just mentioning this, okay, right. And in case if you find difficulty here, I would still say, okay, you can just mention key equal to this part, right? Remember, I could directly use this, but in case if you find it difficult, I can mention it out here, okay, right? Now, how do I get the value part? Sorry, it's not map here, the map object here, right? How do we get the value part? Now, this statement will give me the existing value. In case if it is not existing, it gives me 0 value, right? So once I get this particular one, remember, it will automatically give me 0 if there is no such element of specific key. But if it is existing, it will give me the specific value, whatever is the value part in that. Now, once I get that, I'll just add 1 to it and put it back into that. Clear? Okay, fine. Now, I've updated this. Once you have captured the frequency, the next thing is I would like to traverse and check out that how many socks of each type is present. So I'd like to create an iterator for the purpose of traversing. I'll just write an iterator, right, equal to sock frequency dot begin. Okay, now to access this, I'll just write while it is not equal to sock frequency dot end, right? I would like to access the the key part and the value part. The key part is basically stored as a data member called as first, and since it is basically an pointer like objects, so I have to use an arrow key operator to access, okay, first. Clear? Right. After that, I would like to give a small colon out here. After that, it, and I would like to get the value part, right? Okay, and it has to be updated before you proceed further. Now let's try to run this particular code and then check out if this is printing properly. Okay, let us take up a small value, 5, 1, 2, 2, 3, and let us say 2, right? You can only make one pair of 2, we cannot make anything else, but you can observe that 1, there is only one occurrence, 2, there is 3 occurrences, 3, there is 1 occurrence. Once you got this, okay, you want to count the number of pairs, int number of pairs equal to initially 0. Every time you get this, just write number of pairs plus equal to it of second divided by 2, right? Since it is an integer and integer by integer will give me integer. Finally, I need to print number of pairs, right? Okay, remember, even this statement should be commented if you want to submit to HackerRank, and even this statement should be submitted, okay, commented when you want to submit it. Clear? Right. Now let's try to run this code here, test it, and finally we'll submit it there. We'll take the input which is given in HackerRank. We had 9 socks, 10, 20, 20, 10, 10, 30, 50, 10 and 20, right? There were 4 socks. We can make up 2 pairs. 20 there are 3, 30 there is only 1, 50 there is only 1. Fine. Everything is clear till here. Fine. Now you want to submit this. Take the code, but please do remember to comment this because we don't need to print here, and even this statement, right? Take this code and submit it in HackerRank. Right? Compile this. Pass the sample test cases and we could run this. Clear? So here is the code which can be used to solve the sock merchant problem. And if you want to simplify it, and assuming you're working with C++ 11 and above, then you can simplify to a large extent. First thing is, here Instead of using this, I could just use auto. But remember, this can only be used if you're working with C++ 11 and above, right? Okay, I don't need to mention that lengthy declaration. That's one thing. And then here again, if you, instead of using a traditional for loop, if you want, you can basically use a for each loop. How do we use a for each loop? We'll just write for, I want to get the key, right, in sock IDs. Okay, so sock IDs, that's done. So I'll get this, right, done. This will do my job. Clear? Okay, even for this also, if you want, okay, instead of using the iterator, if you want, you can just traverse it with the help of for each loop. Fine. Okay, let me just try to compile this. But remember, you have to at least select C++ 11 or anything above that, C++ 14 or 17, right? Anything less than that will not work, right? Since we have commented the statement number of socks, let me just say 7 socks. 1 2 3 3 4 3 2 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, right? We got it as 2. We can make one pair of 3 and one pair of 2. Clear? Okay, would you like to replace this also to a much easier one? We can just use for, right? We basically get a pair. We'll take this code and submit it into HackerRank. Right? Okay, the new code. Try to compile this. And also submit. Here is a code. Fine. If you want, you can also replace this, instead of using an iterator, you can always use the new style for loop. Fine. Thank you.